Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
New Orleans, and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot about the New Orleans Saints and the NFL draft. We're also going to touch on the fairgrounds. Churchill Downs, of course, they've been put on the spot now by the state legislature and the Gaming Commission, as well as the Racing Commission. We'll talk a little about that with our guest as well. Joining us on the program tonight is Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, and Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report. 34 years of his Draft Day Report. And, of course, we want you to join the conversation tonight at 504-866-3200. But as always, we welcome our guest. And Katherine, welcome back to the program. Glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
And Al, thanks for showing up and joining us tonight for your inaugural visit on the program. We always like to let folks know a little bit about what's going on. Katherine, I was talking to you a little bit in the before the show, and I thought maybe things might have slowed down a little bit for you, but they really haven't, huh?
That's the funny thing. It's the off season, but as anyone who follows the NFL knows, there is no off season anymore. So it's as busy as ever, but we got a week till the draft, and I am counting down the days.
Right. Now, folks can find you on NOLA.com. You're also obviously tweeting, but every day something really new on NOLA.com from obviously the chats you guys are doing all the way down. Kind of tell folks a little bit about it.
Like you said, we do a chat every week, and we're going to have a chat next Tuesday before the draft. And we have mock drafts every week. Also, another thing that we're doing is picking the 5 best Saints draft selections and the 5 worst. So we're leading that up to the draft. And then, of course, starting Wednesday, we'll have draft coverage every day throughout the weekend.
Al, welcome to the program. You and I have known each other for a long, long time. And
sure
I'll tell you what, I can't believe there's been 34 years of your draft day report. Tell the folks a little bit about it. I
can't either. Well, you can get the draft day report if you want to email me at adupuy, D-U-P-U-Y, 1, the numeral 1, at cox.net. I'll give you all the information, and I can mail it out first class, and you'll get it in a couple of days.
Al, what's the biggest challenge now? When you started off, I mean, it was a lot more difficult, obviously. You had to go out and really kind of seek out the information on these players.
Oh, it's
now
changed.
With the internet, it's really changed.
It's changed a lot, yeah. I can remember a long time ago when I first started, the combine was passé. Nobody could go to the combine. No media in the combine. One day I was at the Saints camp, and Ricky Jackson was there. And I got to chatting with him, and he says, I think he knew I did a draft report. He says, I think I got something you might be interested in. He goes in the locker room, and somebody had left all of the times and everything from the combine on a bench there, and he gave it to me. But back then, you couldn't get any of that information at all. Well, now, of course, I view all of the combine.
Yes.
I go to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, not the game, but the practices. Yes. And then I also view all of the combine. So in my book, I have every official combine time.
Right.
So
the Senior Bowl is something you've done for a long time.
Yes.
Really kind of almost since the inception of the magazine, right?
Yes. Well, not in the first years, but it's been a long time. Quite a few years.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's a good time in Mobile as well. For you folks that have not seen it, and I know that the guys may be pulling it up for you, this is a copy of the Draft Day Report. I highly recommend that you guys contact Al and have that for your draft day, so you can kind of look up these guys as they're coming off the board. We'll start with the fairgrounds tonight, and Katherine Terrell was, along with Jeff Duncan, did an expose on the fairgrounds and Churchill Downs, and they put a lot of attention to some of the shortcomings that are happening out of the track. For a lot of us who are maybe not at the track, not following racing, that maybe are heading out there for Starlight Racing or heading out there for this weekend for the Jazz Fest, I think a lot of us were very shocked by what was going on out at the fairgrounds. And I want to tell you what, I'll tell you this on the air, I'll tell you it off the air, I'll tell you this on our radio show. I think what you've done is you've really put a spotlight on the fairgrounds, something that we feel is really part of our culture. Obviously, there's a lot of history there. And I think you've really kind of enlightened us on what some of the problems were. First of all, for those that don't know, just a quick overview of what the series was about and what you found out.
Well, a few months ago, we had a lot of people coming to us with their concerns about the track. Everyone ranging from horsemen to diehard fans to just even casual fans that went to the track. And they were very concerned about, essentially, their feeling was that the track is being run into the ground. I guess for lack of a better word, the turf course or the grass course for people who don't follow horse racing only is able to run about half of its scheduled races. That means essentially when it rains, they have to take the race off of the grass and put it on the dirt, which not all horses are suited to that.
Yes.
So that's a problem for horsemen. The barn areas are kind of falling into disrepair a little bit. Poor customer service, just essentially everything, you name it. A lot of people feel that the slots have taken priority over the actual horse racing. For example, if you see a TV ad about the fairgrounds, it'll probably say something about come play our slot machines instead of come watch our horse races.
Yes.
So that's the gist of it, I suppose, the gist of the problems anyway.
This is a problem, though, around the country. Churchill really looking to be able to capitalize on the gaming end of their business, really kind of almost leaving the horse racing as almost a stepchild in their corporation. Here in Louisiana, again, horse racing, big business. Breeding of horses, big business. And I think people were a little bit upset because one of the reasons why they were awarded a gaming license, the ability to be able to have slots, to be able to have video poker at that site, was to be able to augment some of the funding so that they would keep the track up, so that they would have top purses and we could get the best horses down here.
Yes, that's really where the whole problem lies. The slots were allowed voted in by the Gaming Commission and by Louisiana so that they could subsidize the purses and keep racing afloat. Racing struggles without slots in some aspects because it is a sport that is struggling to find its way, I suppose. But at the same time, the slots are kind of what's killing racing. Slots are cheap. You know, there's no baggage that comes with slots. You don't have to deal with live animals, and it's easy to put all your eggs in one basket on that and try to make a lot of money that way. But at the same time, you know, I talked to a trainer at the fairgrounds, and he said everything Churchill Downs had was because of horse racing.
Yes.
And now people wonder if they really want to be a horse racing company anymore. So they own 4 tracks, and it's not just the fairgrounds, it's a problem at some of the other tracks. So there's a big outcry against Churchill Downs right now about the way they treat people, the way they treat their customers. For anyone familiar with horse racing, the jockey who rode Secretariat, Ron Turcotte, who has been paralyzed since the 70s because of a racing accident, wrote this very harsh letter to Churchill Downs about how they treated him. They wouldn't give him tickets to the Kentucky Derby. They wouldn't accommodate his wheelchair access. He had to park in a neighborhood blocks away for the Derby, and it's just, it all comes down to poor customer service.
Yes.
How are you going to treat your fans?
Right. Well, poor customer service at the off-track betting. We've heard that over and over again.
Too.
They've allowed that to really kind of run into disrepair here in New Orleans. Also, again, the situation, you mentioned the turf course. Folks, some are complaining about the grandstand. Some are complaining, as you mentioned, about the barns and the video boards as well.
Yes.
Okay, but again, because of your series, it's really kind of put a spotlight on everything that's going. Patrick Connick, representative from the West Bank, has kind of taken the mantle on this and has gone in the state legislature and is trying to get some bills passed to be able to make sure that a portion of the proceeds from the gaming goes back into the track. And also the Louisiana Gaming Commission and the Racing Commission are also stepping up as well. Kind of tell us about what has been the offshoot of your series, because we're starting to see some real changes now from our end, what we can do as Louisianians to kind of force Churchill's hand to be able to put money back into that facility.
You know, as you know and everyone knows, the fairgrounds means a lot to people in New Orleans, and I think New Orleans also doesn't take lightly to maybe outsiders coming in and running something into the ground, and they feel very protective over the track for good reason. So there's been this, I guess, this simmering outcry that's kind of been under the surface for the past few years, and then we wrote the articles, and now it's definitely they've heard us. And what happened last week is that they had a meeting with the Louisiana Racing Commission to decide whether or not they would renew their 10-year license to run races at the fairgrounds. The commission was very firm with them. They're not happy about what's going on. They want transparency from Churchill Downs. They want a commitment. And Churchill Downs has pledged to invest up to $1 million into the racetrack over the next 2 years, which includes replacing the broken video board, repairing the turf course to an extent. I'm still waiting to see exactly what's going to happen with that. Repairing the barns, getting a better marketing plan, improving their customer service. So they're making these promises kind of because we've kind of forced their hand. So it'll remain to be seen what happens.
Also includes possibly, again, looking at the drainage system on the turf course as well, and making sure that if that needs to be replaced, to replace that. The Louisiana Gaming Commission also got involved in this as well. They would not renew their gaming license. I believe they gave them a 1-year extension at this point, and they're going to come back and take a look at it because, again, we've got some bills that are pending in the legislature right now that may force them to put proceeds of the gaming back into the track.
Yes, that bill about a week or two ago passed 94-0 in the House, and now it's going to Senate committee, where it should be heard sometime this week or next week. There was not even a single word of opposition to it when it was on the House floor, which was very interesting. There was a very heated debate between Churchill Downs representatives and representatives for the Horsemen a few weeks ago in committee. So it's a heated debate. There's one side that feels that government should not be telling businesses how to run their business, and there's another side that feels that if Churchill Downs isn't forced to put money back in the track, they won't. So it's interesting. It's not something that's going to go away anytime soon, and this problem is not going to go away. It's going to be there for years, I think. So,
is there a plan with NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune to do follow-up stories on this to be able to continue to put the spotlight on what's going on at the fairgrounds?
I think so, definitely. Like I said, I think it's not something that just goes away. I think that Churchill Downs is making these promises, like I said, because we forced their hand. I'm not quite sure after a year or two what happens. You could be right back where we are now. So I really think that as journalists, it's important to hold people accountable and kind of, like you said, keep the spotlight on it, to not let this problem go away and not just let the track go by the wayside. Well,
especially for what it means to the folks here in New Orleans. I mean, we love history. We love the history of our city. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is to make sure that things of historic significance continue to live on. And of course, one of those things obviously is, some have said the third oldest track. Some are saying the second oldest track in the country, right?
It depends on how you look at it. It changed names a couple of times, but there's an argument that it's the oldest or the second oldest track in the country. Officially, it's the third oldest, but that's pretty significant. It's older than Churchill Downs itself. So.
Well, let's shift gears. Let's talk a little New Orleans Saints. 504-866-3200 is the phone number if you'd like to get involved. Katherine Terrell is the beat writer for the New Orleans Saints for the New Orleans Times-Picayune and NOLA.com. And we got a little treat for you tonight. Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report, 34 years of taking a look at college underclassmen and seniors coming into the NFL draft. And Al, we'll start with you first. Al, how deep is this draft? How good is this draft? What positions are the deepest?
Very deep. This is one of the better drafts in quite some time. And I think the best position is going to be wide receiver. Eric, I think there'll be 6 wide receivers going in round 1. And whether the Saints get a hold of any of them remains to be seen. I think they will have to trade up if they want to get a couple of the top ones, like a Brandon Cooks. I think they probably have to trade up to get him. Odell Beckham, I don't think he'll make it down to 27. So those kind of guys are going to be gone. Of course, Sammy Watkins, the number 1 receiver, will be gone. And Mike Evans will be gone. So the only guy that may be still there, Marquise Lee has a chance. I'm hearing that he's sliding a little bit. and he could slide down a little bit to the Saints at 27. But this guy's an excellent receiver. The reason he may be sliding a little bit is because he didn't have a great season last year as a senior, because the quarterback play and also some injury problems. But other than that, he's an excellent receiver, and I think they would grab him if he slides to 27. Although I think the top priority, in my opinion, is cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reason that the receivers are so deep is, the fact that the receivers are so deep, I think they could get a nice receiver in round 2 if they go the cornerback route in round 1. So that's my thinking right now. And mock drafts change every other week.
Katherine knows that.
Yeah, I do.
But I know I did see one of your mock drafts, and you like Cooks, I think.
I do.
And I think the Saints like him too. He's like a Percy Harvin type guy, a speed receiver. He doesn't fit the mold of the Saints as far as tall receivers, but he would really be a playmaker for the Saints. Even though he's only 5'9.5", something like that, he's a playmaker. He could probably fill the role of a Darren Sproles. Even though he's not a running back,
right.
He could line up and play a lot of the things that Darren Sproles did. So I think they'd like to have him, but I don't think he's quite going to make it down to 27. So do you trade up and get Cooks, or do you Justin Gilbert, the top cornerback in this draft? Do you trade up and get him if they're looking for a cornerback? I like Jason Verrett, who I think is going to go right around where the Saints are picking. The only knock on Verrett is that he's not tall either. He's not a tall cornerback, but he's got great leaping ability, tremendous ball skills, and they picked up Bird, a safety, for that reason. And this guy can do the same things at the cornerback slot. He can pick the ball off. He's got ball skills, and he's got leaping ability. So the fact that he's not tall, this may help there. So,
how deep are the corners in this draft?
Corners are pretty deep as well. Roby from Roby from Southern Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Gilbert from Oklahoma State. Kyle Fuller, you got is another corner that's going to go bottom of the first, top of the second. So I think those guys are going to be in the ballpark on the board.
Katherine, as you've looked and you've talked to Saints personnel, I mean, again, this is the time of year where you can't believe anything that's coming out of any NFL camp. You know that as well as I do.
Exactly.
I mean, it is the time of misinformation. So if somebody's telling you something, pretty much they're trying to plant a seed there and hoping that you're going to run with it. What do you think the needs are for this team right now? Again, to me, as I look at this, and I've said this over the last few weeks, I think the Saints have put themselves in a great position with some of their off-season acquisitions, re-signing some of their key players. They are set up now. They can go best player available. But again, they're always looking to be able to fill holes. What are your thoughts? What do you think the Saints are going to do? And are you hearing anything that you can think is legitimate coming out of Saints camp?
Well, I'm actually pretty much in agreement about the needs. I think cornerback is a top need. Champ Bailey is really not a long-term solution, and they could get a very good cornerback in the draft and then have him learn under Champ Bailey, and it would kind of be a perfect situation. At the beginning of the spring, I was very against the idea of them taking a wide receiver in the first round. I just didn't think at the time that it would happen. But then, of course, Lance Moore was released, and everything changes week to week. And now I think that a wide receiver definitely could be there. It's kind of interesting. My colleague Jeff Duncan has them trading up to get Cooks. I have them taking Cooks at 27. With this draft, a lot of these guys are they're all over the board. You don't even know who the first pick is going to be,
right,
which is kind of strange at this point. It could be one of 4 guys probably, or they could trade down. But I think that it's a very deep class for receivers and for cornerbacks, and that the Saints are really in a good spot. Another need that they might think about is another pass rusher, maybe taking an outside linebacker. And then they might need to take a center. It kind of depends on what happens with Jonathan Goodwin.
Right.
They could still sign him, and they could even still take a center if they sign him.
Right.
But well, I'm not sure that that's going to happen before the draft, though.
Right.
So
Well,
waiting, seeing.
my guess is that they probably go into the draft, see what they're going to get, and again, Goodwin is out there. And maybe they take a look at Goodwin after the draft, depending on what's going to happen there. But I definitely think he's on their radar. Obviously, he's visited. They both know each other. He hasn't really taken any other visits that I've been able to see when I've gone on the net to be able to investigate it. So at this point, he is a viable solution if, honestly, Tim Alito, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, is not the guy, or they go into the draft and they don't draft a center that they want to try to fit in. It's pretty tough for a center to make that move from college to pro. Not a lot of guys do that. In your experience, how tough is it for a center to make that move?
Well, what I think they're going to do, if they draft a center, I think it's going to be a guy that can play guard and center.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Like a Marcus Martin or a Brian Starks.
Mm-hmm.
I think those kind of guys can play guard and center.
But those are later round picks, right?
Yes. Well, maybe third or fourth
Right.
round. And that's the history of the Saints, really. If you notice the past drafts, the philosophy has been they don't take a lot of wide receivers in round one. They did take Meacham in 07, and he was doing really good until he went to San Diego, and then when he came back, I don't know. He's got to catch on again. But I think that they may take a wide receiver if there's one that they really like. But the history is to take offensive linemen somewhere like they did last year and around round 3, something like that. And Armstead they grabbed last year. And so these guys, I think they do need help inside at center and offensive guard, because what happens if one of the top guards that they have, they're two good guards,
right,
with Grubbs but what if one of them goes down? I mean, it's going to be late in the season, hopefully, and this
right.
guy will have experience. But they don't have a lot of depth there. Alito may start out at center, replacing De La Puente. So, I think they still need a young guy there that can play guard or center.
And Katherine, I think you would agree with Al, something that they've done really in the middle rounds. They were able to pick up that extra 5th round pick with the Sproles trade. When you look at the offensive line right now, they're not destitute there, but they have an aging offensive line. I mean, you look at, again, a lot of money wrapped up in the two guards that are I think Jari Evans is 30, and I think that Grubbs is approaching 30. You look at obviously Zach Strief right now at the right tackle position. This is probably his last contract. I would think that that's got to be on their radar to get a guy that can play maybe guard, center, and then maybe another tackle in this draft to be able to at least have somebody as a backup that they can groom as these guys maybe get a little bit older, a little longer in the tooth, but also start to get really expensive over the last couple years of their contract.
And it's only going to get more expensive. Next year, it's going to be, if they had salary cap issues this year, it's going to be worse next year unless the salary cap jumps significantly. But I'm sure they'll worry about that then. But they really don't have much depth, and you saw that. I think it was against the Arizona Cardinals, and I think week 4, Jari Evans went down, and they had to put Lolito in there. Lolito is an undrafted rookie, and they were playing a very good defense, and it was kind of disastrous.
It was.
He kind of got hobbled early. He really struggled. But then again, his next start replacing Evans, Lolito has 1 day of practice. His grandmother dies. He's barely even been around all week, and he has a very good game against the Falcons. So they see potential there, but I think that they don't want to be in that situation again where they're kind of throwing an undrafted rookie to the Wolves.
Yes. So
I definitely do see that they might try to add some linemen in the draft. And kind of like Al said, I think that they might talk to some guards about playing center. I know they talked to Trey Turner about whether he'd consider playing center. I think Turner might go higher than what they want.
Yes.
But just kind of that's where their mindset is. So.
Al, when Tim Alito came out, where did you have him? And is he a guy that at Grand Fork Valley State? Grand Valley State. Was he a guy that played strictly guard or guard center?
He started out at guard, yeah, and but he he can play both. I mean, and a lot of these guys can do that. I mean, and I think, you know, Zach Martin, who's going to go in the first round from Notre Dame, this guy is a really great lineman. The knock on him, he can play tackle, he can play center, he can play guard, but the knock on him is that he has short arms. He's not real, and the scouts really look at that, you know. If your arms are short, it's hard to play left tackle in this league.
Because you want to get that extension.
And so you got to get that extension. So I look for him, even though he's listed pretty much as a tackle and he's a first-round pick from Notre Dame, I think that he's going to end up playing center or guard, probably guard in the NFL.
Guys, what would shock you, a position that they would pick in the draft? Let's say, again, there's a run on receivers. Some are saying, as you mentioned, there could be as many 6, 7 receivers that can go in the first round. There could be a run on corners. Obviously, there's always a premium on corners. You know, in the past, I've had conversations with other draft gurus that, you know, are looking at maybe the linebacker position that may fall to them. Either that outside linebacker position, which they've desperately needed for a while. A guy that's got speed, athleticism, they can go sideline to sideline. I'm not talking about, you know, a situation that we've seen where, you know, you're lining them up in that 3-4, that defensive end. I'm talking a pure outside linebacker. And then you look at again, a guy like a C.J. Mosley who could play, that middle linebacker. Your thoughts, Al? Would it surprise you if they went linebacker or maybe some other position that fell to them?
Well, you know, when you're picking 27th, they always say we're going to take the best player on the board. And if somebody, what you do is you rate your players on your board and say you want a position, but when you get to 27 and you have this guy rated, say, 20th, they're going to grab him, you know. It may not be like they did with Deuce McAllister a few years ago.
Well, like they did with Kenny Vaccaro last year as well.
Yes. I had Sheldon Richardson last year going to the Saints in the first round, and he got picked off 2 picks, I think, before the Saints to the Jets, and he had probably the best rookie season of any rookie defensive player last year. But Kenny Vaccaro was a great pick.
Yes.
And that's another philosophy and kind of a history. They've taken a lot of defensive backs high in the draft, either first, second, or third round. If you go back, you know, they've taken defensive backs high. So I would not be surprised if that happens again because it's pretty deep at cornerback. I don't think they need any more safeties right now unless one of the top 2 safeties, Calvin Pryor or Clinton Dix should fall, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Katherine, any position that may shock you, they go in that direction?
I guess I would really only be surprised if they took a lineman in the first. I think really any of the other positions Al was talking about, really, like he said, it's all about who's the top player on your board. So if Pryor, for some reason, is there at 27, well, you don't need a safety, but I mean, you kind of have to take him at that point. Yeah, and actually the Saints, with the way they substitute, they could figure out a way to use him. And they actually had him in for a visit. So you never really know what these teams are thinking or how they're thinking it. So that's why you get these shocking picks on draft day. But a lot of times it's just that's the best rated player on their board. So I could see them taking a linebacker. I really do lean towards cornerback or wide receiver, but it really is all about how the board shakes out. I think the only thing that would really shock me is tight end or quarterback.
Or kicker.
Hey, they've done it before.
No, Russell Lark-Slavin. We've lived through that.
We don't
yes,
need
we
that
have.
again.
No, that's a bad memory. I'm sorry, Saints fans. I'm sorry. I'll tell you what, we'll take our break. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Got a great panel for you tonight. Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report, 34 years of Draft Day Report, and Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Remember, each and every Thursday night, 6 p.m., live right here on WLAE-TV with a rebroadcast on Friday nights, 10 o'clock on WLAE-TV and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Don't go anywhere. We got more of Inside New Orleans Sports for you coming up.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
My life is full of statistics. Thing is, I could have dropped out of school and become one myself, but I didn't because I had people that believed in me. Here's another statistic. 7,000 students drop out every school day. That's 1 every 26 seconds. It's time that students know that we believe in them.
Inspire a student and share your message of support at boostup.org.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV. Make sure you check it out or, again, program it on your DVR so you never miss an episode. Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. She is a Saints beat writer. She joins us tonight, along with Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report. 34 years of Al Dupuy's Draft Day Report. And guys, as you look at the upcoming draft, and we've talked a little bit about the offensive line. We've talked about the wide receiver position and the cornerback position. Al, I'll start with you first. Some other positions that are really heavy with quality talent in this draft.
Well, I think safety's pretty good, but they don't need that. I think that offensive line, I think it's pretty deep, and I think they're going to take one, maybe even two offensive linemen somewhere in this draft. I know they like Zach Martin, but he won't be there at 27. So I think the philosophy of the Saints in the past is they'll look for an offensive lineman probably around the third round, unless they really like one and grab him in round 2. I think the way I'm looking at it right now, and this is just me, is they take a cornerback first, and then they go for a wide receiver in round 2. I like Landry.
Jarvis Landry out of LSU.
He's not real big, not a 6'3" guy like they like, and he doesn't run really good, but the guy's a football player. He blocks, he runs routes, he makes one-handed circus catches.
Great hands.
He gets open, and he'll be like a go-to receiver for the Saints. If they want a bigger, maybe a faster receiver in round 2, I think Dante Moncrief from Ole Miss would fit that mold. So there's another one.
Katherine, would it surprise you they trade up, trade back? Again, they've got some picks to spare if they need to do that. I mean, again, trading up for Odell Beckham would cost too much. With a lot of talk about maybe Cooks, maybe having to move up for him. Would it shock you for them to go either move up or to trade back?
I personally don't see them moving up unless, for some reason, a player they really love is kind of within their reach. But for a wide receiver, I don't know that it would make that much sense to move up because, like you said, you're not going to get Sammy Watkins or Evans. You're not going to get Beckham, who I don't think will make it past the Jets probably. So then you've kind of got these guys that are kind of close to each other. So it seems like staying put at 27 could get you a good receiver. Kind of the same thing with cornerback, and you could get a good receiver in the second round. Maybe trading back, I could see that more than I could see trading up, especially to grab a receiver. That would surprise me to trade up.
No, I agree with you. And again, as I've talked about on my radio show, I think that there is a good possibility that teams may be looking to move into that slot. They covet a player, and that they trade back and pick up additional picks because of the depth at the positions you mentioned, Al, wide receiver, cornerback, and offensive line, to be able to pick up multiple picks and to be able to still get, because if I'm not mistaken, most draftniks have said that after the first 20 picks, there's a log jam there between 20 and, 50?
Right, yeah, and it stays deep. Yeah,
right, and everybody's pretty
50,
close as far as where they're graded. Am I right?
The only scenario, there's two scenarios, like Katherine said, you could trade down, pick up extra picks, but also if you're close to having a team that you think is close to the big game, the Super Bowl, do you say we got to get some quality and we're going to trade up a little bit and get this guy we really love? Like say they want the best cornerback in this draft because they want to strengthen that secondary, which they've already done. But to trade up and get the best rated cornerback, in the draft. Would they think about doing that, even though they give up numbers? You know.
Yes. 504-866-3200 is the phone number. This is a live show tonight. If you'd like to call in and give your thoughts on the NFL draft or the New Orleans Saints, feel free to give us a call and join the conversation at 504-866-3200. Al, some Louisiana products that you think will get drafted in this upcoming draft.
Well, of course, LSU has a bunch. They're going to have probably only one first-round pick this year, and that's Odell Beckham. I think but you have maybe 3 second-round guys. I think Mettenberg is going to be a second-round pick. Some have him lasting till the 3rd round. But here's one scenario, you know, say Houston Texans take Clowney with the first pick.
Yes. They're
going to be looking for a quarterback. And I would not be surprised if Mettenberg is the first pick in round 2 to the Texans. I'll rate him a little bit higher than McCarron, although I like McCarron a lot. And I think that could possibly happen. It's not a good year for running backs, but Jeremy Hill is one of the bigger backs in this draft. It's a lot of small backs in this draft. And Jeremy Hill, I think, is going to be a second-round pick as well. So I think they're going to have 2 or 3 picks in the second round for LSU. As far as the tackles go, you know, I don't like Anthony Johnson. I think that he's going to slide. He just didn't make enough plays. I'd rather Ego Ferguson. I think he's a better player. So there's a guy, Justin Ellis, from Louisiana Tech. That's he's just a run stopper in the middle, and I think he's a good Louisiana prospect. So they're going to have quite a few Louisiana players going in this draft.
Let me throw a couple out at you. Trey Turner.
Trey Turner has moved up the draft board some. I thought he would be like a 5th round guy, and he's moving up. He could go as high as 3 or 4, I think now. And he's a guard. I think he's pretty much a guard.
Yeah, strictly a guard.
To play guard, yes.
How about Ryan Grant from Tulane?
Now, Ryan Grant I like a lot, and I'm sure that the Tulane coach has given Sean Payton some accolades on Ryan Grant. I think that the only knock on Grant is he doesn't have really good speed. He didn't run that well at the combine. But he gets open, he's got good hands, runs really good routes, and he can get with double moves and whatnot. He can get separation from a defender. So I like him a lot. I think he could slide, and if he slides into round 5, I would not be surprised if the Saints take a look at him.
The other Tulane prospect is Cairo Santos, the kicker.
I don't know if he'll get drafted. It's not, you know, kickers don't get drafted unless you're exceptional, and he is a good kicker. If he's there at the end and the draft's over, he's probably going to be a free agent coming here to compete, I think.
Let's head to the phone lines, 504-866-3200. Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune, Saints beat writer, on our panel tonight, along with Al Dupuy of Al Dupuy's Draft Day Report. Let's go to New Orleans East and DJ. DJ, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Eric, Al, and your other guest. Question I had was in reference to the Saints maybe trading down out of that 27th pick. If neither one of those 2 teams at the top, Houston or Jacksonville, pick quarterbacks, does he think that either one of those teams would try to get back in and get a quarterback? Because I know, you know, after the Saints pick, none of the other teams really need quarterbacks. Maybe New England, but you know, these other teams seem to have quarterbacks. But I wanted to know if he had some teams that he thought, you know, might look to move in. Maybe the Redskins, since they don't have a number 1 pick.
DJ, thank you for the phone call. Al?
You mean if they don't, like Texans don't take a quarterback?
The Texans go with the Clown.
Yeah.
And they don't want to wait.
I mentioned that before. I think they would. I think they'd look at Mettenberger. I think McCarron or somebody like that in round 2. You know, and I think the other quarterback. I think Jacksonville. They may take a quarterback with the first pick, but there'd be another team that would try to get a quarterback in round 2 if they don't make a pick in round 1 for a quarterback.
Let's talk a little bit about the offseason. And Katherine, I'll start with you first. You know, I've been amazed about how they've been able to manufacture cap room. to be able to fill needs, which has put them really in a great position for this upcoming draft, where they truly can take the best player available. Your thoughts on how they've done in the offseason, some of the additions that they've made, again, from the shocking signing of Jairus Byrd to Champ Bailey all the way around. Give us your thoughts.
I think we were all pretty shocked about Byrd. I was not expecting that myself. I didn't think that they had the cap space. But teams will always find the cap space that they really want a player. I think, like you said, they put themselves in a very good position for this year. Maybe they're sensing that, there's always talk about the window, and of course teams always kind of wave that off. But it was talked about after the Seattle loss, is that window closing, and maybe they sense that and want to take advantage of as many years as Drew Brees has left. So they improve their defense, and they sign a player like Byrd, and they get to the draft, and like you said, there's really not that many holes that they need to fill. There's no glaring need. Sure, a cornerback would be nice for them, but they don't have to take a cornerback. They've got quite a few on the roster. A wide receiver would help, but again, they don't have to take one. So really, they've really made a lot of good moves this offseason. They've really managed their cap room well. Next year, it might be a little bit of a problem. A lot of the contracts jump significantly, Brees's contract included. Yes. So it might be a situation again where they're going to have to release a lot of longtime fan favorites, but they'll worry about that whenever they get there. But
the TV deal is supposed to expand next year as well, which I think they were kind of counting on.
I don't think that it jumps significantly next year, though. I think that's the year after, but I think it does jump. I think it'll help.
Yes.
It does jump a little, every year. So.
Right.
I think the big jump is a few years away, but I think that, yes, that's what they're looking at, hoping that they can kind of work that out when they get more cap space.
How about the Champ Bailey signing? And where do you think he'll ultimately play? Will he be a corner? Will he be in the sub packages? Where do you think he ends up?
A lot of people have kind of brought up the prospect of him playing safety, but I think he will play corner, and I think that he has a good chance to win the starting job. I know that he's had a lot of injuries lately, and he is about to turn 36.
Which is amazing to even say that, huh? 36.
Yeah, he's still going strong. And I think that he could have a very nice rebound year in Rob Ryan's defense. And, Ryan has a very good way of putting players exactly where they need to be to succeed. You saw that with a lot of the defenders last year, and I think that it could be the same for Bailey. And if he's not a full-time starter, if he's a rotational guy, maybe they draft a cornerback, or, maybe they put Patrick Robinson or Corey White there. I know Corey White was very hit or miss, I guess, as best to say. But, he's a young player. He's a very aggressive player. If he can kind of harness that, I think that he has the potential to be a good player. So, they have a lot of options.
Yeah, they really have put themselves in a position where they don't have to go to any certain position, and I think that's something that was by design, honestly.
Yeah.
Al, what are your thoughts about the offseason acquisitions?
I think Katherine's right. Mickey Loomis's theory has been that we want to try to do everything in free agency, so when the draft comes, we can take the best player. We don't have to take a certain position. I don't know if they've accomplished that totally. I still think they're going to need a cornerback.
Yeah.
Because Champ Bailey, when they picked up Champ Bailey, my first thoughts were that, they're going to play him as a nickelback, or maybe even move him to safety. I watched some of the games last year, and he got beat pretty badly, but he was playing with an injured foot, and I'm hoping that was the reason for some of those problems he had last year. And the guy's an all-pro cornerback. It depends how much he's got left in the tank.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they're saying they're going to, of course, start him out at cornerback, and that's a smart thing to do. Start him out at cornerback, see what he's got left, see if he can play. But if you had a young cornerback, just imagine what they could learn from a guy like Champ Bailey.
Well, you're hoping that Patrick Robinson, who I believe is his last year of his deal.
Right.
Corey White, who again had as a slot guy, as a nickel guy last year. I thought he played very well. It was only when he got a little bit exposed against Atlanta when he had to come in for Jabari Greer, and I thought he really he made strides after that.
Right.
But I would agree with you. Both guys can learn from Champ Bailey, but you can never have enough good corners.
Well, I think P-Rob's, the injury hurt him a lot too. He was playing fairly well, and he can run. I mean, he's got good speed, but I think Corey White. And I just think he's more of a nickel type corner.
Bigger,
I don't
rangier.
Think,
yes.
Is it off coverage? I think he's going to have problems.
Yes.
You know.
Guys, when you look at some of the moves that they've made, obviously they just picked up the option on Cam Jordan, his 5th-year option, $6.9 million. The Saints have until May the 3rd to be able to exercise the option on Mark Ingram. Everything we're hearing out of camp is that they will not exercise that option, which again I think makes sense when you look at trading of Darren Sproles, because he was approaching just over $4 million that he was going to make this year, a player that was declining a bit, especially when you start talking about the return game. You know, there's no doubt he still had the ability to be able to play that running back and to be that receiver out the backfield. You look at at Pierre Thomas taking that pay cut, and then you look at again a guy like Kyrie Robinson who's poised to maybe be the bell cow back there. Katherine, I'll take you first. Your thoughts on first of all the no-brainer of picking up the option on Jordan, but what do you think is going to happen with Ingram?
Well, Jordan was a given. It was widely assumed that they would pick up his option, like you said, and why not? He's playing his best football right now, and he's only going to get better. With Ingram, I think it's, people say, well, what if he has a good year? What do they do then? Well, I think that Ingram just hasn't proven himself yet, and this is their message of you need to prove it. He came into camp last year very optimistic that he was going to have a good season. He said he had all the injuries behind him, and then he got hurt, and the first half of the season just wasn't working for him. But I think that he came on very strong at the end of the season. Showed really good flashes of potential whenever he wasn't hurt. I think he had a great game. I think it was against the Cowboys, 145 yards. He played well in the playoffs. That fumble aside, he's shown that he can be a good player, but he's also got his issues. He doesn't break tackles well. I think he tries to run into the defenders, and they don't move like they did in college. So I just think that they don't want to pay him $5+ million right now. I mean, if he has a good season, then they'll talk then.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Al, your thoughts?
So I think it's the money too. I mean, $5 million for a running back.
And they're not paying any of their running backs that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think this team had one too many running backs. Besides the salary of Darren Sproles, they had to get rid of one of them because Ingram is more effective when he runs the ball more. And they were dividing it up so much with, not many teams carry 5 running backs. They may pick up another running back, I think, in free agency or lower in this draft. But I think that they had one too many running backs, and I think now they have 4. They're going to give them more carries. They like 1 or 2 guys that can pound it out, like Ingram, Robinson, and of course Pierre can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I think they're set pretty well at running back, and I don't look for them to draft one, although there's been a lot of talk about Archer going. And
tell us a little bit about him.
If he does go, here's the thing about Archer. A lot of they compare him to Darren Sproles because he can do some of the same things. Darren Sproles was 5'6", 190 to 195 pounds. Archer is 5'8", and he weighs 173 soaking wet. And if you look at him at the combine, he's got very narrow hips. He looks even smaller than 173 pounds. Now the guy's dynamic. He can do a lot of things. And if they want to get him and bring him in here as a free agent or in the low rounds, some saying he's going in round 3, I think that's a little high. But they could use him as a return man for sure.
Right. It kind of leads me to my next question. I'm of the opinion that in this offense, whether it's been a Reggie Bush or whether it's been Darren Sproles, they've had that dynamic player that will dictate to the defense, move that safety, move that linebacker, open up some holes for Jimmy Graham or one of the receivers, or even for the running backs. Katherine, do you think that they'll look for that type of player? It doesn't necessarily have to be a running back, but that type of player, whether it's a Brandon Cooks, whether it's an Odell Beckham, again, which I doubt will be there, or, as Alice mentioned, Archer from, Kent State? Or Thomas, DeAnthony Thomas from Oregon State.
Yeah.
I know that Peyton has said that Travaris Cadet maybe could fill that role. I remain a little bit skeptical.
So do I.
He, I think, caught He didn't have many offensive snaps last year.
Right.
Actually, I think maybe that was what I was thinking of. It may have been 10 offensive snaps. Had a couple of good plays, but I just remain skeptical that he's going to be able to fill Darren Sproles'
I just wonder if he's
role.
got that type of speed. That's all.
Yeah, well, it's hard to emulate Darren Sproles.
Or Reggie Bush's speed.
Right.
Yes.
He's elusive, but he's not Darren Sproles.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but, I think that he can do some of the things that Sproles did, but probably not as well. And I think they're thinking they can use him there, but they may bring in somebody else.
Right.
But I don't think it'll be in a high round. I
Right.
think it'll be either free agent or real late in the draft.
So you think they will go after that type of player, but it's going to be a luxury at this point,
right.
not something they're going to
and
target.
they've been very good at bringing in
Right.
free agent running backs.
Right.
You know,
Right.
every year they seem to come up. We go to training camp and
Oh,
say,
yes.
They come out
here's
of
another
nowhere.
one.
Right.
It's like Kyrie
Like
Robinson.
Robinson
Yes.
last year,
Yes.
Ivory, you know, Pierre Thomas. I mean, they've done it over the years.
Yeah. Would you agree with that? I mean, are they
yes.
going to look for that type of player?
I think so, because it makes their offense unique, and I think that they don't want to be one-dimensional. At times, even with Sproles, they did become one-dimensional, and it became an issue,
Yes.
especially when their only option was to throw to Jimmy Graham, and you saw that against the Patriots and against the Seahawks, that didn't work, and then they're kind of stuck. What do I do? They need to be multidimensional as they have in the past, and so I think they're going to want to look for a guy who can fill a lot of roles. That was the plan with the running backs, that they all filled that role going into training camp. Robinson, Ingram, and Thomas were all expected, to catch balls out of the backfield and kind of be these dynamic players, and they didn't really try to do that with them that much.
Yes.
So maybe they'll try to get back to that this year.
We mentioned it a little bit in our first segment when we talked about the Saints. Tim Alito, and I guess the big question is he ready to come in and be that center for this team? Again, there's been some interviews with him in the offseason. He understands what's in front of him in terms of learning the offense, making those line calls, getting guys in the right spots, making sure that, again, they know where the blitz is coming from. Katherine, I'll take you. You've been around the camp. You've been around these guys. Do you think that Alito is the heir apparent here and that it's his job to lose?
I think that they are going to want at the least competition for him, or a guy like Goodwin who can teach him. It's a lot more complicated just other than shifting inside. Like you said, he's got to know all the calls. He's got to be the leader of that offensive line, and it's a hard thing to do when people had their issues with Brian De La Puente, saying that he could get overpowered, but he was also, a very good leader, and he knew what he was doing, and it's just easier said than done. I think that he can do it, and I think that eventually they do want him to do it. It could be this year. I'm not sure that they're going to put that burden on him this year. I think that they're going to try to help him. But
with maybe a veteran like Goodwin.
Yes, and I think that would be the best option for someone to teach him, a short-term veteran that he could learn under. But if they like him enough, then,
turn him loose.
He could be the guy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Evidently they think that they like him a lot and think he could probably do it, but who knows? I mean, until he can play center, and we see him play center and they see him play center, it's something he hasn't done. Now, he is a little bigger and stronger than De La Puente, so, but like Katherine said, he's got to make the calls and all of that. You can't just step in there and do that. It's going to. Now, of course, you got a long training camp, and if he's not panning out, I look for him to find a veteran center somewhere. But I think they're going to give him a chance, and we'll see what happens.
A big enigma on this team right now. We've talked a lot about wide receivers going into the draft, maybe looking for that speed guy. Joe Morgan. What do you think they have in Joe Morgan? Do you think he's going to be a guy that can come back from this injury and can be that dynamic, deep threat for this team?
Joe Morgan is a very interesting case. He caught 12 passes, I think, in between those years he was hurt.
Yes.
So you wonder. I don't want to say Morgan is injury prone, because I think that was a freak accident in a training camp. I mean, I saw it happen, and it's just one of those things, just like Patrick Robinson or Jabari Greer's accident. Injury. But I think that he's got the speed. I think that he's capable of being that speed guy, but you have so many questions about him. We've seen so little of him, and he made a big impact in that small amount of playing time he had. So that's definitely a good sign. But I think at this point we really just don't know, and that's why he has, they didn't sign him to a long-term contract.
Yes.
They don't know either yet. I mean, he's still got a lot to prove.
Yeah. Al, what can you add?
Well, I like Joe Morgan, but I think that, like she said, he hasn't had a lot of experience catching the ball. And I think Drew has to be comfortable with his receivers. And he didn't go to him a lot, and there's probably reasons for that. The guy I really like, of course, is Kenny Stills. And everybody says we need a speed receiver. He ran 4.38 at the combine.
Well, he's fast.
So he is fast now. I've heard stories. Well, he got caught from behind a couple of times, but they probably had angles on him because he made some long plays as well. And I think that he has enough speed to get separation and go deep, but I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in a speed receiver. But their history's kind of been a guy he's not only a speed receiver, but he's got to be a good route runner and good hands and a good receiver.
Well, again, if a guy like Morgan can pan out and they trust Morgan, that's why I wouldn't be surprised if a Jarvis Landry wouldn't be on their radar.
That's what I'm saying, yes.
He's a guy that obviously can get underneath. And if we're going back, for lack of a better player to compare him to, an Eric Martin type, who used to be able to get underneath and make those tough catches for the Saints way back when in the Moore era. We've just got about a minute or so left. I want to ask once again, your thoughts, first pick of the draft, where the Saints go? Jason Verrett, I think I'm going to stick with him. I had him in the book. The only knock on this guy is that he's not tall, but he's a really good cornerback, and he can run. He's in the 4.3 range from TCU. So I think that if he's on the board, they're going to take a long look at him. Marcus Lee, if he slides to them, I think they'd take a long look at him from USC, the receiver. Katherine?
Yeah, Verrett is a guy I had in my original mock drafts. I think he'll be there, or he'll be around when the Saints pick. I love Kyle Fuller, but so do a lot of other teams. So I think he'll probably go off the board, even though I had him going to the Saints for a while. And if Cooks is still there, I would think that they would snatch him up in a heartbeat. So wide receiver or cornerback. Lee's another one, like you said.
No doubt. Guys, just in case you haven't gotten the publication yet, it is the Draft Day Report by Al Dupuy. 34 years of Draft Day Report. Al, how can folks find out more information?
Just send me an email, Dupuy, Dupuy, 1, and at cox.net. I'll mail it out first class, get it in a couple of days.
You'll have it for the draft, for sure. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Certainly appreciate it. Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune beat writer for the Saints, and Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report. Also want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight and each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE, and of course on Friday nights on Pelican Sports Television. Remember, there is a rebroadcast of this program each and every Friday night at 10 o'clock on WLAE and Pelican Sports TV in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette. Don't forget, you can also catch me on the radio weekdays on 990 AM WGSO, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. And if you missed any of the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports, or you want to check out the podcast of my previous radio shows, you can check those out at ericasher.com. Special thanks to our guests, Katherine Terrell of NOLA.com and Al Dupuy of Draft Day Report, and also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my producer-director, William Hill. For my panel tonight, and of course, we want to make sure that you guys tune in. I want to thank you guys for watching tonight, and we'll see you right back here next Thursday night for Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for watching. Good evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.